when giving becomes self-abandonment. This one, it's all about how to love, how to serve, and show up without losing yourself. So the other day I came across something that stopped me. It was basically just one sentence. Service is not the same thing as sacrifice. Let me say that again. Service is not the same thing as sacrifice. And I had to sit with that for a moment because I think somewhere along the way, many of us have learned and been conditioned to confuse the two. And I know 100% that's me. And before you drop off, because you think I'm about to give you another podcast about boundaries, self-care, and learning to say no, give me a second. Bear with me because I think this goes much deeper than that. As early as I remember, I was taught by my parents, by school, by society, by the world around me that service is good. I think this is a Gen X thing, all right? Helping is good, working hard is good, being reliable is good, putting other people first is good. Yeah, I am Gen X. And technically, I'm right there at the very end of Gen X. And I think that matters because many of us grew up with a very particular understanding of work. You work hard, you don't complain, you don't expect somebody to congratulate you for doing your job good. You basically show up, you stay late if you have to, you figure things out, and if something needs doing, you do it. And you don't complain. Or you complain, but you do it quietly. So no one hears you. Or you do it to your partner. And if you work hard enough, eventually you will be rewarded. Or at least that was the promise. And there are actually things about that mentality that I love. Okay, I don't think that hard work is bad, all right? Especially if you're passionate about the work that you do. I don't want to live in a world where nobody wants to take responsibility for anything. But somewhere along the way, I think that some of us took a beautiful quality, being dependable, being generous, being of service, and we quietly attached our worth to it. Are you still with me? Okay, I'm going to say something. All right, let's see if it triggers you somehow. I'm valuable because I'm useful. Do you relate? Do you recognize that? Maybe it's not who you are right now, but maybe it's something that you find very familiar. I'm a good person because people can depend on me. I'm a good teacher because I give everything. I'm a good daughter because I'm always there. I'm a good partner because I don't give up. I'm strong because I can handle it. And eventually, you have to ask yourself, when did exhaustion become proof that we care? When exhaustion becomes an achievement, think about this for a second. Think about how casually we glorify exhaustion. Someone asks you how you're doing and you say, "Oh, I'm good, but I'm exhausted. I've been working nonstop." Yeah, I used to do that a lot, by the way. And somehow there's almost a little pride underneath it. Look how much I've done. Look how many people need me. Look how much responsibility I'm carrying. Look how hard I'm working. And I've done this and that. Oh my gosh. Yep, many, many times. For a large part of my life, my ability to keep going has been one of the things I've been proudest of. And believe me, I can keep going. I've proven that. But over the past few years, things that have happened in my life and life has made me question whether being able to carry something automatically means that I actually should. I mentioned this before. We are cyclical beings. There are seasons where we have enormous capacity. There are seasons where we don't. There are seasons for building, giving, and creating, and there are seasons where life says, no, something has to change, something has to give. And for me, I had to learn some of that the hard way, through exhaustion, through grief, through my body, through relationships. And for realizing that there is a point where giving stops being service and starts becoming self-abandonment. So let's talk about service versus sacrifice. And now I know that this will probably trigger a lot of people because it did for me. And I had to question, why is this so triggering for me? And is service sacrifice? Or is it service versus sacrifice? Okay, let's dive in. So I've been teaching for most of my adult life. Well, actually, I started teaching when I was like 14, but that's a different story. But as a professional dance teacher, yeah, since the early 2000s. I've been a movement teacher, dance teacher, Zumba master trainer. It's called an education specialist. And for many years now, I've been training other people in whether it's health, movement, self-love. Teaching is part of who I am, and I genuinely love it. I love watching somebody walk into a training unsure of themselves and then seeing something change. Suddenly they're different, they're standing differently, they move differently, and I see, that spark in their eyes, and I can almost hear them thinking, maybe I can actually do this. And this gives me energy. So when I talk about giving too much, I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. Giving can be incredibly energizing, and service can be incredibly fulfilling. The problem isn't giving. The question here is, what is it costing you to give? Because those are two very different things. And working within the Zumba world, it's taught me something else too. And Zumba is known as one of the happiest workouts in the world, and I love what it represents. But behind the music, dancing, happiness, there is still a company, and it's an American company. I've spent enough years working internationally to see just how differently we approach work depending on where we come from. Corporate American culture is not Swedish work culture. Communication is different, expectations are different, accessibility is different. The relationship between work and personal life can be very different. And when you're working across cultures, sometimes you don't even realize how much you're adapting. You just keep adapting because you're professional, because you're dependable, because you want to do a good job. But you know what? Eventually I started to ask myself, where does my responsibility actually end? And this has nothing to do with Zumba. This is about setting boundaries for myself. Yes, protect myself. Because being a good teacher doesn't mean I have to carry every single student. Being a good educator doesn't mean someone else's success becomes my responsibility. Sure, I can teach you, I can give you the tools, I can encourage you, I can answer your questions, I can open the door, but eventually you have to walk through it. And strangely enough, understanding that doesn't make me care less about the people I teach. I think it allows me to care about them in a healthier way. Because available doesn't mean accessible, and technology has made this so much worse today. We have created a world where let me rephrase that. We have created a world where because somebody can reach you, there is an assumption that you should be reachable. You know what I'm talking about? So someone sends an email, 5 minutes later, WhatsApp, hey, I just sent you an email. Yes, I know. It's been 5 minutes. But we've somehow created this culture where everything feels urgent. Email, WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram, work chats, notifications. Whew! Everybody has a direct little doorway into your attention, and every notification says, look at me, look at me, look at me. Somebody needs something from you. And if you're somebody who naturally likes helping people, this can become very incredibly difficult because responding feels good, being helpful feels good, being the person people can rely on, it feels good. Let's be honest about this. But until you realize you're actually never off. And I am learning that availability and accessibility are not the same thing. I can care about you and answer tomorrow. I can be an excellent teacher and not respond at 10 o'clock at night. I can love my work and still close the door. I can be generous with my energy without giving everybody unlimited access to it. A boundary doesn't mean I don't care about you. You know, sometimes a boundary actually means I care about what I give and I don't want to give it to you from depletion. And this brings me to another matter. When love turns into rescuing. It's not only about work, my friends, here. I've done this in relationships too. In my previous marriage, there was a lot of trying to fix things, trying to make things better, trying to help, trying to understand, trying again and again and again. And I want to be careful here because I actually think there's something admirable about two people fighting for a relationship. Relationships aren't disposable. People go through difficult periods, and you shouldn't necessarily walk away because something becomes uncomfortable. I'm just going to pause right here and let you know if you're hearing any type of construction work in the background, that is not a sound that I have chosen to put on. It's just there. There is construction going on and it's beyond my control. But anyway, let me continue. There's a difference between two people trying to repair something together and one person slowly becoming responsible for keeping the entire thing alive. And I didn't recognize that difference for a long time. I kept trying to rescue it, trying to rescue him, trying to rescue us. And eventually, somewhere inside all of that fixing, you start losing pieces of yourself. You adapt, you compromise, you explain, you tolerate, you find coping mechanisms. Mine was traveling, by the way, traveling and working and teaching. Yep. And slowly, without some dramatic moment where you consciously decide to do it, you abandon yourself. That's the dangerous part, my friends. Self-abandonment doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks incredibly loving. Sometimes it looks loyal, and sometimes it looks responsible. Sometimes everybody around you is even telling you what a wonderful person you are for doing it. But inside, you're disappearing. And I've come to understand something. Love and rescue are not the same thing. I can love you without taking responsibility for your life. I can stand beside you without carrying you. I can support you without making your outcome my responsibility. And that can be incredibly difficult when your identity has been built around being the person who fixes things. I have to pause there for a moment because it becomes even more interesting when I look at the women in my family. So the women who came before me. And I'm seeing a pattern here. My grandmother, my mother, me. I can see the patterns. Women who carry, women who endure, women who get things done, women who don't necessarily say what they need, women who keep going and keep going and keep going until sometimes there isn't much choice anymore. Now you can call that generational conditioning if you so want. Or you can call it ancestral patterns. You can call it karmic inheritance. Use whatever language makes sense to you. For me, What's important is actually not the label. It's the recognitions. The recognition, understanding, what have I inherited that I don't necessarily want to keep carrying? Because breaking a generational pattern doesn't mean rejecting the woman who came before me. It's quite the opposite. I can honor my grandmother without repeating everything she endured. I can honor my mother without carrying everything she carried. I can love where I came from, and I can still say, this part ends differently with me. And that brings me to my mom. When service comes from love, yep. Let's see if you understand what I'm talking about. So let me bring you back a little bit. In the late 2023, my mother became sick, cancer, pancreatic cancer. And from that point, my life changed. For the next 2.5 years, I was there as her daughter, as her emotional support, as a caregiver, and very often as her health advocate. Because navigating the medical system became a job in itself. There were moments when I was angry. There were moments where I was frustrated. And there were moments when I felt like I didn't ask the questions, research things, push follow up, and pay attention. Who would? And yes, I put many of my own needs aside. And here's where the conversation gets complicated, because I don't regret what I did. I don't look back and think, oh, I should have had better boundaries with my dying mother. No. Life isn't an Instagram quote. Sometimes love does ask something enormous of us. Sometimes we willingly sacrifice something because the person in front of us matters more in that moment. And I would do many of those things again. That's why this conversation isn't about never sacrificing. It's about becoming conscious of what you're sacrificing, why you're doing it, and whether you've made sacrifice your permanent way of existing. Because after about 2.5 years, things, they seemed to stabilize. My mother's blood levels were holding, the cancer seemed to be kept somewhat in check. And for the first time in a long time, I thought, maybe I can focus on my life a little bit now. Arkady, my partner, and I have been living in El Qusar, this little city by the Red Sea in Egypt. And we decided to move to Hurghada, which is a bigger city. We wanted a little bit more civilization, a little bit more life around us. And we found a house with a garden, a cat, we joined the gym. And these are such ordinary things. But after living with illness hanging over you for years, ordinary becomes extraordinary. I remember beginning to feel, oh, this is what normal feels like. I could breathe a little. I could focus on my relationship. I could be with Arkady. I could start asking myself questions about my future again. Do I move to Hurghada permanently? Do I continue going between Sweden and Egypt? What do I want to build here? What's next for me? And for a brief moment, I felt like Arkady and I could finally focus on us, our home, our relationship, our life. I remember thinking, this is happiness. And then my mother got really bad. I flew back to Sweden, and within a month, she died. And there is something that happened inside me after that, which I think deserves its own episode someday. And that's guilt. Because somewhere inside me, there was this horrible little thought. Was I selfish? I had finally turned toward myself. I had allowed myself to be happy. I had allowed myself to focus on my relationship. And then she died. Rationally, I know those things are not connected. And perhaps most importantly, my mother wanted that life for me. She wanted me to have love. She wanted me to live. But grief, my friend, isn't always rational. And I'm going to leave that there because guilt deserves a conversation of its own. What matters for this conversation is the question underneath it. Do I have to wait until everybody else is okay before I'm allowed to live my life? Because if I do, when exactly will that be? When is everybody okay? When does nobody need you? When is your family completely settled? When is work finished? When are all the emails answered? When has everybody you ever loved solved all their problems? Yeah, here comes that word, never. And if I wait for that moment to give myself permission to live, my life will remain permanently postponed. And this is where all of this becomes very personal for me. This is where the body enters this conversation, because eventually my body was starting to tell me things. I spent so much of my life being able to push, analyze, adapt, work, teach, travel, solve, carry, keep going. And after everything that happened, my mother's illness, caregiving, losing her grief, work life, my body eventually said, nope. And I've talked about my health journey before, so I'm not going to turn this episode into that story, but I will say this. When your body suddenly refuses to operate according to the expectations you've placed on it for decades, you start listening differently. And I want to be very clear here. I don't believe every illness is caused by emotions. I don't believe you get sick because you didn't set enough boundaries or because you thought the wrong thoughts. That's simplistically. Sorry, it's too simplistic and frankly cruel. But I do believe our bodies live our lives with us. The body experiences stress, grief, sleepless nights, pressure, joy, love, movement, exhaustion, years of holding everything together. The body remembers. And lately, I've been asking myself a different question. Not how quickly can I get my body back to doing everything it used to do, but what if I'm not supposed to go back? What if this isn't about rebuilding the exact same life? What if I'm supposed to build differently? So I'm going to share with you one of the hardest lessons that I learned. For people like me, maybe it will inspire you. Who knows? My darling, rest. Rest before your body demands it. Not when you're sick, not when you're completely exhausted, not when your body physically refuses to continue. Just rest. Can I stop while I still have energy? Can I have an afternoon where I don't produce something? Can I leave an email unanswered? Can I say no before I'm angry that somebody asked? And can I cancel something before my body forces me to? Can I say I've done enough today and actually believe in myself? Because perhaps that's the relationship with my body that I'm trying to build now. Not tell me when I've gone too far, but I'm listening early enough that you don't have to scream. So I don't want to give less. And here's what I want you to understand. I don't want to become someone who gives less. I love giving. I actually thrive from it. I love teaching. I love helping. I love supporting people. I love creating something and watching it make somebody else's life better. That isn't something I need to heal out of myself. It's part of me. What I want to change is the belief that giving only counts when it costs me something. That love is measured by how much I carry. The dedication is measured by exhaustion. That loyalty means staying beyond the point where I've lost myself. That being a good person means being permanently available. That rest needs to be earned because maybe service isn't the problem. Maybe love isn't the problem. Maybe generosity isn't the problem. Maybe the question is simply, can I give without abandoning myself? Can I serve without sacrificing who I am? Can I love without rescuing? Can I support without caring? Can I be there for someone without disappearing from my own life? Can I build something for other people while still building it from myself? And can I rest while I still have something left? Instead of waiting until I spend every last drop, Yeah, I think that's the chapter I'm entering right now in my life. Not becoming less generous, not becoming less loving, but finally understanding that I am also one of the people I am responsible for caring for. And maybe my next chapter isn't about becoming less generous and finally including myself among the people I'm generous toward. Maybe it's about understanding that, yeah, service is beautiful, love is beautiful, and giving is beautiful. But the moment you have to disappear in order to keep doing it, well, that, my friend, that's no longer service. That is self-abandonment. And I'm going to end this by saying that I don't know how you feel about all of this, but I don't want to abandon myself anymore. So I'm opening the door to my new chapter. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay blessed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.